Let's take a look at some lone wolf attacks that shocked the world in the last decade. In 2016 in France, more than 80 people were killed and hundreds injured when a man drove a truck through a packed crowd. The Islamic State claimed responsibility, though investigators said the driver had been self-radicalized. There was no evidence linking him directly to the terrorist group. In 2017, a Briton plowed a rented SUV through pedestrians on Westminster Bridge in London, killing 2 people and injuring at least 40 more. A day later, the Islamic State described him a disciple and a hero for the assault, but no evidence emerged of a direct link. Now to Canada in 2017. 6 people were killed and 19 people were wounded in a shooting at a mosque in Quebec City. A 27-year-old student, allegedly known for his right-wing nationalist views, was charged with murdering 6 people. In 2019, a gunman in Christchurch, New Zealand, killed 51 people at 2 mosques. According to reports, he had plans to target a 3rd mosque as well. To India in 2020, the horrific beheading of Kanhaiya Lal shocked the world and India and showed that India is no longer immune from the violence perpetrated by lone wolf terrorists. 2 Islamic extremists were charged for the crime. Now let's look at what inspires or influences these attacks. The biggest factor is extremist propaganda that is intentionally spread online. Islamic State's digital arm frequently uses social media and encrypted messaging apps to radicalize and recruit potential lone wolves. Experts have said that personal instability and ideological alignment with extremist causes are some of the key reasons people sometimes gravitate towards executing these attacks. Early findings from the New Orleans case indicate that the suspect may have been influenced online. Though authorities keep a close eye on extremist content online, there are other challenges. One of them is rapid migration of extremist materials to encrypted platforms.
All right, so that was a look at some of the very disturbing lone wolf attacks that have taken place, different parts of the world. But coming back to the New Orleans as well as the Tesla truck incident, we're now joined by John Rossomando, commentator on U.S. national security, joining us from Washington, D.C., and Dr. Richard Benkin, commentator and journalist. Thank you so much both for joining us today on NDTV. John Rossomando, first to you. This particular attack, a lone wolf attack, is extremely challenging for security agencies. The New Orleans suspect, Jabbar, when did he go from, being a regular person, who was in the army, and then, suddenly was radicalized, self-radicalized by all indications, and then to plan an attack like this?
Well, I would say if you look at the pattern of lone wolf attackers, they tend to be individuals who are alienated from society. He had financial problems. He had a lot of things going against him. He became more radicalized, and they look for ideologies to gravitate to take out their anger against the world, whether it's Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma City bomber, or this particular Mr. Jabbar, and planning out this ISIS-inspired attack in the Big Easy, New Orleans.
That's right, Dr. Richard Benkin. I mean, yes, one has now, learned so much about this Jabbar, about how he had mounting debts, he had a failed marriage, he was angry, it seems. But even then, your view on how, dangerous and challenging this is for security agencies to track?
Well, it is challenging. By the way, thank you for having me on. It is challenging because, as John pointed out, there are a lot of individual factors that are going to make someone open to finding some radical ideology to give them maybe some meaning to their shattered lives. And it's almost like tracking down individual crimes. It's not like you can go to look for an organization, look for its footprint. So it does present a challenge in that regard. I do want to mention, however, I think the phrase lone wolf is really a misnomer, because tactically, yes, they are lone wolves. However, as we saw in New Orleans, although ISIS was not part of planning that attack, the deliberate radicalization of people like Jabbar online is very much a strategy by groups like ISIS. So, in a sense, they were as much they're responsible for the attack as Jabbar.
All right, interesting. So you're saying, while he was self-radicalized, there is ISIS there online, providing this sort of material to these people, that they can, finding those people who are really open to this and fall victims really to the propaganda. But John Rossomando, if we look at both these attacks, both these incidents that have taken place, New Orleans, yes, it was a vehicle attack, 14 people losing their lives, and then the Tesla truck explosion. In this particular case, Jabbar is an army veteran, while in the Tesla case, more concerning, he was an active soldier in the army.
Well, I think that you have to look at matters of things like post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, you have people who have such treatments are more likely to engage in violence. I think that the one thing about the Tesla attack is the motivation is less clear. We have members of the Green Berets family saying that he was a Trump supporter, or that he was a patriot, and that if he really was behind the attack, it would have been more spectacular because the crude explosive that was put in the Tesla was something that didn't even shatter the windows. I think the one thing that we need to look in terms of Jabbar's case is who was he interacting with? If you look at the Masjid Bilal where he went, on its website, talks about jihad fi sabilillah, which is jihad of the sword. And you also have a lot of Afghan migrants who came after the fall of Kabul, who live in eastern Texas. And according to my Afghan sources, there might have been Taliban who came with them. So we need to find out who he was communicating with and what his motivations are, because oftentimes you'll have these individual jihadis communicating on Telegram, Signal with people overseas.
All right, Dr. Benkin, yes, we don't know whether the Tesla explosion was meant to be some kind of political statement. That is still being investigated. But yes, coming back to Jabbar and security agencies and this threat to the public through these attacks. There is this conflict, or rather a challenge for security agencies vis-a-vis privacy concerns and tracking such individuals, who they're interacting with, what they're posting online, isn't it?
Yeah, but when you talk about privacy concerns, this is you're absolutely right. This is an argument that's been raised again and again throughout history. I don't remember, I think it might have been Benjamin Franklin that I read said something about that we can have security or freedom, but we can't have both, or something like that. If we go for one, we'll lose the other. Regardless, there's always a challenge as to how you balance the two. And exactly how you would apply this with online content is certainly above my pay grade. The only thing I would say, I think for most Americans, certainly, we're going to look askance at any kind of restrictions on personal freedoms, any kind of restrictions on free speech. It doesn't mean that there aren't security reasons for implementing them, and we might agree ultimately to do so. However, we're always going to take that, look at that rather critically at first to determine whether or not that loss of freedom is warranted given the security issues.
All right, John Rossomando, your view on this, and coming back to that earlier question, how concerning is it that both these men were, from the army? One was a veteran, one was an active soldier.
Well, first of all, we have a problem of political correctness, or DEI, and the FBI, where they're prioritizing looking at neo-Nazis or people they call white nationalists instead of looking at these jihadis who are protected under the DEI criteria as victims. So I think the one thing that we need to be looking at is providing better access to mental health for our veterans through the VA, because you have both and also in the military. So I think that's a real question.
All right, and final word to you, Dr. Richard Benkin. Your final words on this very unfortunate one was an attack. In fact, there were 3 cases that took place in the US on the same day. You had the shooting in New York as well, but the Tesla explosion, and then this very deliberate attack on people. 14 people have died in the New Orleans attack, and a huge challenge ahead, especially now that you're going into a new presidency. You also had Trump, many saying jumping the gun, blaming immigration. But yes, your final word on this incident and the challenges it raises.
Well, although these people were born in the United States, I think President Trump makes a point about immigration. But the greater point is, I think over the last 4 years, we have some challenges. We really lost track to a large extent of who is in our country. And certainly for any kind of security, any kind of law enforcement, that's got to be corrected. We only have 17 more days before a new administration takes office, but it seems clearly that's a priority that they're going to take care of early on.
All right, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much both for joining us on the program.